Okay, next movie, and it is a glorious digitally restored presentation of The Wizard of Oz, remastered in Dolby Digital Stereo. It's a picture that until this week I had never seen in its entirety in a movie theater. How great looking is this version? Consider the now flawless sepia tones that set the mood for Dorothy's Dust Bowl, Kansas farm. When the film switches to color as Dorothy arrives in Oz, I was dazzled by the intensity of the colors, as I expected to be, but I was also struck by the elaborate and undoubtedly expensive details of the production, including the costumes worn by the Munchkins. Now, spending that much time and money wasn't necessary to the story, but such details contribute to the all-encompassing entertainment values of a movie from another era of filmmaking.
Oh, I agree with you. And this movie, of course, is on the AFI's list of the 10 greatest American films of all time and deserves to be. And just one footnote, you can't go wrong seeing this movie anywhere it's playing in a theater because it's going to look so much better than on television. Yes. But there are two color versions around. Most theaters are showing Eastman color, and some theaters are showing the 3-strip dye transfer Technicolor process, a new Technicolor process that tries to duplicate the classic 3-strip process of more than 50 years ago. They both look good, but if you can find the 3-strip Technicolor, that looks really great.
Yes, it is measurably better, brighter. The colors are far more intense. Well, either way, next at the movies, a special X-ray segment as we take another further look at the Oz film.
The subject of today's X-ray, the wonderful world of Oz. And that world seems all the more wonderful after seeing Return to Oz, which, as we mentioned just a moment ago, seems to lose track of the cheerful innocence of the original movie and get carried away by the current fashion for scary special effects. The original 1939 Wizard of Oz remains one of the greatest movies ever made, a film that still gets good ratings whenever it plays on television, and the kind of film that parents and grandparents love to see for the first time with their kids and grandkids. Take them to see The Wizard of Oz and share the experience. I don't think there's much in Return of Oz you'd want to share, especially with the younger children, unless you want to share A Sleepless Night with them later. Right. The movie is curiously grim and downbeat. Here's a sample scene. Well, that'd be okay if the yellow brick road ever got repaired, but
they even got the road wrong.
But the road isn't all that's lost its magic and its glow in this new Oz. And to make the contrast, let's go back to 1976 and The Wiz, a musical directed by Sidney Lumet and starring in this scene Diana Ross and a young Michael Jackson. The Wiz was not a box office success, but that scene shows that at least they did understand something of the special magic of The Wizard of Oz and its carefree spirit of adventure. Now look at the original scene from the original movie. It makes you want to see the whole movie all over again. Now, of course, it's easy to praise a classic and easy to criticize Return to Oz for daring to invite comparison with a classic like that, but I'm not even talking here about the artistry and craftsmanship of the various Oz films. I'm talking about the spirit. And the question that Return to Oz ought to ask itself is, birds fly over the rainbow, so why or why can't Oz?
It's a matter of tone. That's exactly what you're talking about. This film is a high-tech kind of film. The business of her flying over with that carpet that we saw in the clip there before just seems recycled out of every other picture.
Disney film in particular. They always have something funny that flies. That was out of Bed Knobs and Broomsticks, where the bed flew.
Yeah. Again, I have to repeat my line, which is simply, I would stay away from classics. I would go to find some other territory that's fresh and do it. I would have put music into this film. You know, The Wiz, just by the virtue of its music, seems like a film that I'd like to see again, even though, as most everyone agreed, Diana Ross was miscast as Dorothy. But at least there, the music was buoyant and joyful. This film is quite somber.
Somebody should have thought, when they, at the very first, when they were starting on Return to Oz, somebody should have had this thought. It ought to be fun, it ought to be upbeat, it ought to be sweet, it ought to be wondrous.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be scary.
Okay.
Coming up next, a special video segment on a fascinating new edition of the timeless classic, The Wizard of Oz. Wizard of Oz is, by common agreement, one of the most magical movies ever produced by Hollywood, a movie you can love when you're a kid and love even more when you're a grown-up. It's been an almost constant release since it was first made in 1939, and it's a bestseller on videotape. But now a new Laserdisc edition of The Wizard of Oz from the Criterion Collection contains some fascinating additional material about the movie. Everybody remembers this sequence from the movie, but the disc includes outtakes of footage that was trimmed from MGM's final release version. Here's how the longer version would have continued. And now look at this. Don't worry if the camera seems to be shaking. These are rare home movies taken on the set of The Wizard of Oz by Harold Arlen, who wrote the music for the movie. His camera shows the trick behind those magical trees. Each one had a man inside to make the limbs move, and here's one of the special effects guys now coming up for air. The Laserdisc includes stuff you didn't even know you wanted to know, including footage from the 1925 silent version of the story. And there's a shot-by-shot soundtrack commentary by film critic Ronald Haver. The Wizard of Oz is another in a new generation of Laserdiscs for dyed-in-the-wool movie fans who want more than the movie. They want the history, the background, the coming attractions trailers, the original publicity stills, and everything else they can get their hands on. This is the definitive collector's edition of one of the greatest musicals of all time.
Oh, you get things like the original drawings of the Ruby Slippers that everyone is all the rage, and there was a big auction over, and you can see how they were drawn differently in the very beginning. You see there's this radio play. You see Marquee when they had a re-release with Judy Garland on it, and they didn't, because Judy Garland was so popular as a singer, they used an older Judy Garland picture rather than when she's older than when she was a little kid in the film. It's everything there. We have to tell people that if you want to get this Laserdisc version, you have to have a Laserdisc player to put it in to play it. But if you can do it, if you can afford to buy one, they run anywhere from about $425 to $700. This is a whole industry that we keep mentioning time and time again. It's worth investing in because you can get not only better sound, better picture, but you can get more material on great films.